All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in tonight to the Georgia Prison Watch podcast, our live podcast that we're doing tonight. We just thank everybody for tuning in and listening to this very, very um, important podcast. We think that it's going to be really informative for a lot of people out there. This is a story or incident that we've been following for over a year now. My colleague Susan Sparks Burns, who is the founder of They Have No Voice, is a which is a prison advocacy group here in Georgia. Um, Received last year, I don't know, 20 or 30 correspondence from people that's incarcerated at Telfair State Prison about this Clifford Lawrence Bagley Jr. Incident that took place in May of 2023. And we're gonna dive into what exactly what happened, what the GDC um, said happened, and then we're also going to speak with a offender live who is um, uh, there who knows a lot about what took place. So before we jump into it, I'm going to introduce Susan, and she's going to jump in and she's going to give any pleasantries, and then we'll get started. Go ahead, Susan.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining in tonight. This is a little different take on an incident that happened in uh, May of last year, and it actually rolled over into June 1st, I believe, of 2023, and then it it connects to what what has happened recently and what is going on at Washington State Prison. So who will say that whoever is the warden at a state prison can easily be moved from one prison to the next, and this is going to be one of those cases where um, what was what the at that time deputy warden was known for, she took with her to another prison and has continued it, as far as we can tell from the reports that we received at They Have No Voice and at the Human and Civil Rights Coalition of Georgia.
Right. So let's jump into this because I think it's important, and I hope everyone would stay with us tonight. We'll probably be on about an hour. Hopefully, we can cut it, a little under an hour. But I think this is very, very important to get this story out there of what happened to this young man, and to also, as Susan said, to let each and every one of you know that it is still happening. One of the main actors, and some of the stuff, I mean, will warn you, is really disturbing. It's heartbreaking, and it's just some stuff that no one maybe has never heard before. There has been a lot of talk over the last year of Jermaine White and Veronica Stewart and others actually killing someone at Telfair. So now we're going to jump into it and kind of give you the stuff that we've confirmed. And when we say, Susan corresponded with over 20 people about this, and I said that to say this. Um, you know, it's always easy to say, well, that can't be true because one person said it or two people said it, and then people say, well, that can't be true. Well, when you got 15 to 20 people with the same story, it's probably some truth into it. So I think we want to lay this out for everyone so you can kind of understand uh, just exactly what happened. So Clifford Lawrence Bagley, 31 years old, who had been at Telfair State Prison probably a little over 4 years. A little over 4 years from the people that I've spoken with, from reading some of the social media comments, from just doing a little research, is that was a very likable, and respectable guy within the confounds of the, I'll say the chain gang. I have not read one negative comment posted about him. It seems like he had a very positive following. And, from the things that I've heard, and I'm sure Susan as well, is that, he was very liked with the staff and with the offender population at Telfair State Prison. So, from my understanding, it starts in May of 2023. Uh, Somehow, some or another, the prison officials received word from supposedly the cellmate of Clifford that he was acting strange. And that's important. But they supposedly had received word that he was acting strange, and they went to remove him from the cell that he was in. And I think it's also worth pointing out is that um, everyone that we have spoken to has said that Clifford never used any drugs, never did any of the jailhouse famous strips or prison famous strips or anything like that. So it caught many off guard when they said that he was acting strange. Well, anyway, entourage of staff at Telfair State Prison at the time, which included Warden Jermaine White and also Deputy Warden of Security at the time, Veronica Stewart, actually went to Clifford's cell to remove him from the cell and to take him to the, I guess, Susan, the isolation unit.
Yes.
Yeah, so they removed him to take him to the isolation unit, and from the reporting that we have received, uh, Clifford was not going for it at the time because he was not known to bother anybody, not known to do any type of drugs, not known to bother anybody. So was there some resistance there? Probably so. But you just going in a prison and getting somebody from their comfort space and taking them to the hole. Not too many people are going to just go for that unless you are accustomed to going back and forth to the hole. So, Susan, if you want to pick up from here, I think I've laid the groundwork a little bit on what's to follow.
Um, yeah, what I understand, and as Brian said, I heard this story repeatedly from either people who were at Telfair or from their loved ones. Same story though. Um, Deputy Warden Stewart, and I'm going to read what I was sent. 100%, he saw them empty 2 full cans into the room and shut the flap. And the curious thing about it, Clifford Bagley was known for being clean. I don't mean for being clean of drugs and all that. In fact, he was called Muscle because he worked out all the time, was all about his fitness and so forth. He wasn't doing anything but trying to do his time and go home. And 2 full cans, and they shut the flap.
Right. And Susan, that's that, and we're going to get to some more disturbing details as well. But that's not all that happened on his way to the hole, to the segregation unit. He was beaten and tased before he was even placed in the cell.
We were talking before we came on air. One of the things that was pointed out is once they're in the cell, I mean, they aren't doing anything other than being in the cell. They're
Right.
not really causing anybody any danger. No one's in danger from that person.
Right. And and one thing that I do want to back up and say, and and I heard it from a very, very reliable, very, very reliable source, and I'm not going to name who, but the person, a person actually has spoken with that roommate that supposedly said Clifford was acting weird and acting funny, and this person is adamantly denies that he ever, never told the administration or anyone that he was just acting weird or doing weird stuff. And this roommate denies that he ever told Warden White, Jermaine White, who is now well, I won't say that, but it was never said, it was never told to him that Clifford was acting weird or strange or anything like that.
Yes, you're right, though. One of the people went on to say that they sprayed and tased until he died.
Yes, and and so and before we get there, it was a power trip from the beginning, because once you are in those segregation cells, and it's just like you said, once you're in there, it's not like you're just going to walk in and out of that cell when you get ready. You can't, for the most part, get out of these cells. Now, some of these institutions got it where you can pop out and pop in and, lock yourself out. And when you're ready to come out, even in the hole, you can uh, manipulate the door and pop out. That wasn't the case here. This guy was an absolutely no threat whatsoever to anyone who played a role in his death. But one of the more troubling things is, Susan, and it came from multiple people in that unit, is that Veronica Stewart would walk by his door every day, 3, 4 times a day, and spray pepper spray into his cell. That is confirmed information. People witnessed that with their own eyes. And it is not, like I said, not just one person, not just two people, not just three people, but up to 15 to 20 people reported this same thing, that on at least 3 or 4 times a day, Veronica Stewart would go in that cell or go in that dorm and spray pepper spray in his cell.
No one should think that this doesn't happen. If uh, that if a deputy warden or even a lieutenant, for that matter, if they uh, are of a mind to basically single someone out, your loved one is without a whole lot of resources to fight that.
Yeah. And Susan, and now I think we can set the stage, because I think we set the stage. Now I want to bring in Unspoken, who was there at Telfair at the time, and he can pretty much confirm all the stuff that we have said this far, and then we're going to come back and tell you tell you how, when you're involved in a murder of an individual who is locked in a cell, who is no threat to you or to anyone else, how they can all be promoted uh, to different positions. But Unspoken, unmute yourself, and I want you to tell the people if we're wrong about anything that we have said, and if we are, set us straight. But I want you to be honest, and to explain to everyone that's on that what exactly took place.
Hello.
Hey,
Yep, you're on. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, the only thing that I would like to clear up with what you said was in the dorm that we were in, C1, there are no flaps on the door.
ah,
So there are doors, but they sprayed inside the doors and they closed them. So what I would like to tell you is that when Mr. Bagley's incident happened, it was not because he was acting strange or anything of that nature. They came in to close down the doors because a couple people had popped out late at night after their lockdown. and they spray the whole dorm when they get in incidents like that. They don't care who it is. They spray the whole dorm. They spray in every cell. So they were ordered to spray inside of Mr. Clifford's cell, and they sprayed inside of his cell, and then they went on the outside and they sprayed inside the windows. If you've ever seen the windows at Telfair, there's no ventilation, so it's very you can't really breathe. And from there on, they called and they said he was unresponsive, and when they came to get him, that's when they concluded with his beating and things. But the spray had already messed him up really, really bad. But if you talk to anyone at Telfair State Prison, they'll tell you that that's common practice at Telfair State Prison. I just recently was transferred out of there, and I've been in the hold there. And what you see in the hold at Telfair State Prison in segregation is very disturbing. During their inspection times, they'll come through and they spray every day. If you're not ready for inspection, they just simply open up your flap and they spray in their room and they close your flap. They do not take you out for decontamination. They do not give you orders or commands. They just spray. This is common practice at anything to do with Telfair State Prison. Telfair does not record when they spray. They all have bounty cameras, but they do not record their incidents. They do not write them down in disciplinary reports. They just spray. Telfair State Prison has a history from Jermaine White came and taught this to their institution, that spraying is they don't give orders, they don't give commands, they don't talk, they don't speak, they just spray. They'll spray you if you're in handcuffs, they'll spray you if you're behind the door, they put you in the shower and they spray you in the shower. This is common practice at Telfair. But everything else that you spoke on, Clifford Bagley, was the truth. He was not a drug user. All he wanted to do was work out, and he was on his way home. He only had, I believe, a year left.
Let me ask you this. It's something that you alluded to. How many times have you witnessed Veronica Smith or Jermaine White or a lieutenant or anyone for that nature at Telfair State Prison spray someone with pepper spray and then have medical come and check them out or sent to medical?
Oh, it's very rare to be sent to medical. The thing about Telfair Prison is so scary is that you have a collective group of individuals who are sick enough to see and do these things and not speak on them. From Jermaine White started it down to Veronica Stewart, Beasley, he was also a sprayer, Lieutenant Craig, Officer Polk, and CERT Team Officer Gardner. All of these individuals right here, they have a history of they will spray you and you will not get medical attention. You will not see medical. They will not write it up. They will not put any kind of documentation on the situation. They will spray you and then they will leave you. There's no medical for inmates at Telfair State Prison. There's no decontamination. Telfair State Prison does not run on SOP. And the worst part about that is when you're at Telfair State Prison, you cannot grieve these things. No grievances are given out there. When I was at Telfair, I didn't see any grievances. They're not put available anywhere. And for the people who had grievances from other camps, you don't see the counselors to turn in your grievance. And if you do happen to see a counselor on a walk or in the chow hall and turn it in, then it doesn't go anywhere because it goes straight to the warden who comes back and tells you you're lying about the situation. So we have no outlet to even speak on the things that are happening to us at Telfair State Prison.
This incident was when Mr. Bagley happened May 26th. And if y'all recall, on into July, we had a very hot period during which an offender died he had been put outside in the cage. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, within a day or two after that, Warden White was moving on. Those were his last days during that period of Mr. Ramirez's death being investigated. And I was told again by many people that He went to the dorms that night, in those 2 nights before he left, and sprayed into the dorms, and did exactly as you described, went outside and sprayed into the windows.
Yes,
And I mean,
and
it was like he was saying goodbye in his own special way.
and
Wow.
let me say this as well. Let me say this, and you and how you know what we're telling you is the truth, because we have video of it. We had video of it from when. Can y'all still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I had a phone call that came in and I thought it stopped. But what I want to say is, and my train of thought left me because that phone rung. Okay, how you know we're telling you the truth? And I want you can go back. The video is on our page from just a few months ago when Warden McFarland was stabbed at Telfair State Prison, and how they went in those
Yes.
dorms and sprayed the inside of the dorms. They went outside of the dorms and sprayed inside of the dorms from the outside with pepper spray to people that wasn't even involved in the stabbing of McFarland.
In fact,
And
they
so
used tear gas canisters.
yes, they went on top of the roof and just dumped tear gas into these dorms. And you had people that couldn't breathe. You had people throwing up. You had people passing out. So if you don't believe us, just go fact check it. You can go back and watch the video. We posted a great link about it when it happened a couple of months ago. So we're giving you the information and telling you what happened to Mr. Bagley. It's still happening today. I mean, it's happening today. It's happening every day. And I didn't want to butt in, but I just had to tell everybody that because it's a lot of truth in what Outspoken is saying of what's has been transpiring at Telfair.
I would like to speak on the. You said his name was Ramirez.
The man who died.
Okay, I remember his incident. I just knew he was Hispanic, but the officer who did that was Officer Polk. That was the same one I was just telling you about. He also has a very consistent history with spraying men and leaving them in their cells. In this incident, he took the man out, but the man still received no medical attention. No inmates are decontaminated when they spray. And if anybody would like to fact check these things, it's easy because they have a record of how much spray they use, but the record with how much spray they use and the record with how often they write it up, it's got to be inconsistent because they do not write reports on their spray use. If they all have body cams, the question is why before the spray is used is the body cam not ever turned on? The question is why is a man inside of a cell sprayed anyway when he's already under control? Spray is used in the SOP to control the situation. And this is not what it's used for at Telfair State Prison. At Telfair State Prison, when I first got to Telfair, in the intake, I witnessed a man getting sprayed because he looked at a CERT officer for too long. These are the type of things that go on at Telfair State Prison.
When this happened to Mr. Bagley, I went to the SOP and looked up what does GDC say is the right way according to them to deploy pepper spray, and they are. I put out a questionnaire on They Have No Voice and had 24 responses at least to it. When pepper spray is used, are the persons routinely decontaminated? Only rarely are they sent to medical, but everyone, but the answer to that is no. One guy said he had only seen decontamination one time while he'd been at Telfair. And then one of the things in the SOP is to give verbal warnings to precede pepper spray deployment. And the answer was depending on which officer it is, mainly CO2s, but some sergeants will give you a couple of warnings because mainly they're the ones who deal with us more than higher ranking staff. But if higher ranking staff does it, no chance of getting any kind of warning. And
Well, and for the people that's listening and the people that's been following, if somebody can mute, because there's a loud background noise coming in, but if people pays attention to our page, then you can see, it goes back to what we're trying to tell you guys is completely accurate, in fact, factual information. And you've been hearing from an offender now that will tell you that they get no type of medical treatment whatsoever when they are maced or sprayed with pepper spray. We've been hearing reporting for the last week that Veronica Stewart is still doing the same thing at Washington State Prison. And now she actually cussed someone out on the radio because an officer or a lieutenant tried to get someone medical attention that Warden Stewart had sprayed. So I mean, it all adds up. That's what I'm trying to say. It all adds up. It's the same MO from Telfair State Prison to Washington State Prison. But we're going to get into that in just a second. But I want to finish this off with Susan or Unspoken if they have anything else to add to what we've been talking about thus far.
But I just wanted to add that I'm glad I just got transferred from Telfair because the conditions there were horrible. If you just I speak out for those guys who are there who can't speak anymore, because if you're there is no everything that they say is going on that they tell you that when they do their audits, it's not happening. Those guys don't get wrecked. Those guys don't see the gym. I was there for 5 years. I never saw the library there. You don't get access to the law library. They had food. I worked in the kitchen. They have food up there that has boxes that says not for human consumption. There's no ventilation there. And all this started from Jermaine White, and he went higher. And if you look at everybody under him, Beasley, Warden Stewart, it's all a chain that it shows that it came from him and it spread. And with him being up higher, it shows that it's probably going to get worse. And these things continue to go on. There's a real abuse going on in Telfair State Prison. And another thing I'd like to tell you that if your loved one died at Telfair, 90% of the time it was something that could have been stopped because they don't do security checks at Telfair. They don't do health checks. They don't do wellness rounds. Once they leave after dinner time, you don't see anybody else for the rest of the night. Telfair is usually a peaceful camp because those guys know that if we do harm each other, no one's going to help us. There's no one we're going to have to bang on the door and pray that somebody out there way across the other side of the compound can hear you banging on the door and come and help you. Most of your loved ones bleed out from situations because they're not watching the cameras because the emergency buttons in none of the rooms, none of them work. When I was in the hole at Telfair, they don't even have plug sockets. They expect you to turn your light on by hitting two wires together. This is how Telfair has. They don't do water. There's not even basic water. The water's brown in there. There is a real humanitarian problem at Telfair, and the real disturbing part about it is you've got a whole group of the whole administration and personnel there. They see this every day and they say nothing. They see this every day and they're complicit with it. They do not care. And that's all I would like to speak on the situation.
Yep, go ahead, Susan.
I think it's important to move forward over that weekend to what happened. I believe it was the following Monday. And it ended up being what GDC calls a disturbance. But the whole weekend, there were people. I mean, this happens every not every time when there's something as awful as the loss of a life do people get riled up, but when it came to Clifford Bagley, this spread through Telfair the entire weekend, and I kept hearing from people, this is wrong, this man died, and this is how it happened, and they were telling a consistent story on how he died. And then I believe it was the following Monday when they went to chow, there was the incident in the chow hall that I understand 5 officers um, were transported. And one story this may or may not be true, was that one of them fell and broke his arm just because he fell. But there were um, offenders who were injured in that incident in the chow hall. But that incident in the chow hall started because Veronica Stewart went in there, and the people in there knew that basically they blamed her for his death. I'm not saying that.
Rightfully so.
Yes.
When you go by a cell and spray someone 3 to 4 times a day who's not a threat, who's locked behind a door, who cannot get out, rightfully so that everybody would be pissed the hell off. And I don't want to jump in on you, and I'm going to let you continue in just a second. But I think it needs to be said that this tells you what Susan is explaining to you now, tells you the type of person Clifford Bagley was. It tells you the type of individual, character-wise, that he was. I hope y'all heard Susan right, because after Clifford Bagley was dead, there was all hell that broke loose at Telfair State Prison. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 officers. It had to do with the warden, Jermaine White. It had to do with lieutenants. It had to do with Veronica Stewart. They got the business handed to them. So go ahead, Susan.
Yeah. And that uprising in the chow hall was tamped down so quickly. They didn't want any information about an uprising, and that's what it was, to get out. But this man wasn't called. Everyone knew he wasn't causing any problem. He was being singled out for special attention, and he died as a result of it.
And and Susan, when you say it's no doubt in my mind. It's no doubt probably in no one's mind, because of the things that we've heard about him, that he wasn't a bother to anyone, that he wasn't a threat to anyone.
Telfair's got plenty of people who are that.
Well, and so it's clear to me that he was singled out by the administration, and they were going to make an example out of Clifford Bagley Jr. And they did exactly what they set out to do. They completely murdered this guy. There's no question about it in my mind. To tase this guy, to beat him up, and to throw him in a cell, and then to go by his cell day after day, and to administer pepper spray into his cell, is the sickest that you could ever be. It's the sickest that you could ever be. You have no regard for human life whatsoever, and it's no example to the people that's in your care, that's in prison, for things that the things that they decisions that they made. For you to do probably worse than some of them would ever do, it's sickening to me. I just can't fathom 100% how you could treat a human being like this, and then to know to know, this is the biggest thing, to know that there's no circulation of air in these cells, that there's no ventilation, limited ventilation in these cells. And you go by this guy's cell day after day, Veronica Stewart, and shoot pepper spray in his cell.
So moving on after this, we get Jacob Beasley, who was there during this period with Warden White and Deputy Warden Stewart. Jacob Beasley at that time was Deputy Warden as well. He gets moved over to Smith in February. He moved March 1st of 2024, and he brought this same he brought the lessons that he learned from Warden White with him. Then 3 months ago, Veronica Stewart gets promoted to warden, and she gets moved to Washington State Prison, where she is today. And she, again, brought the very same lessons that she learned to Washington State Prison with her.
Well, and we need to back up, because what you have missed, and is very, very important, and the people that's listening need to hear this. Now, the GDC knew exactly what happened at Telfair. They knew who was involved. They knew the players. They knew everybody involved. They knew that there was a death of this man in his cell. They knew that staff, not just low level staff, but the head of the Mohican was involved in all of this. Well, what do? A month later, after Clifford Bagley was killed in his cell, they promote Jermaine White to regional director over the Southwest territory of the Department of Corrections, over 15 prisons.
That is true.
A month later, after he participated in the death of Clifford Bagley, he's promoted not to assistant regional director, but to the regional director over 15 prisons.
That is correct. That is correct.
I mean, I don't know, Susan. I mean, it was all a shit show, and you can't explain to me, and I want to say this too, his family was very vocal about Jermaine White being promoted after their loved one's death to a higher position than he previously had as warden. At warden, you're over, as warden, you're over one facility. Well, he was promoted to being over 15 facilities after he had just participated a month before in tasing and beating and macing an individual. He's promoted to the highest top dog over 15 prisons.
Yes.
I mean, how can you make that make sense? And that's a major problem. And I want to say his family was very, very vocal. His mother was very, very vocal. She begged the GDC not to promote him. He participated in a murder, and he was promoted. I mean, it continues to get, it was already sick, and then it gets sicker, and then it just gets disgusting.
Well, let's ask what connects all these dots, and we can go back to the previous Commissioner Ward was basically given a lateral move at the end of 2022 to the parole board, and then Commissioner Oliver came on board January 2023. And you're talking about what has happened since then to now. at some place, the buck does stop with somebody. And in my view, only, of course, that somebody is the man who put Commissioner Oliver in his position, and that would be, who would that be, Brian?
Uh, it may be the Killer Kemp is what I call it.
That would be him. Folks, we've got a terrible situation here in Georgia with our Department of Corrections. And you are right. We have a terrible situation, and as bad as it was those 3 years with Commissioner Ward in place, he was silent for the most part from May of 2020. He was silent until he was moved aside. But Governor Kemp appointed the current commissioner, and this is what we've got. When you ask, well, what has happened since then? This is 2023 and 2024 have been unbelievably deadly years for Georgia Department of Corrections. We're on track right now to end up with close to, if not reach 60 homicides for this year. 5 years ago, we had 8.
Well, and when you keep promoting people who has no human regard or no regard for human life, and you're promoting from within to scumbags like you see on your screen, and you're sending them to, and not only are these two scumbags, you also have Jacob Beasley, who's a scumbag, who we found out today is going to continue to be the warden at Smith State Prison after a murder suicide now 4 weeks ago, and we still don't have a single word on how this man was able to get his hands on a gun and to walk out of his dorm and go walk down the walkway to the kitchen and shoot a person in the kitchen and then kill himself 4 weeks ago. We still have not absolutely one word on that. But when you continue to promote these scumbags who have, as I said, no regard for human life, who don't care if the people that's in their care kill each other, who don't care if they stab each other, who don't care if there's not enough staff to operate a prison as if they have a full staff, who don't care about anything, you're going to continue to see the skyrocket in deaths and violent attacks and probably shootings and whatever the hell else they want to do, because you promote from within, and this is what you have to choose from: people who kill people or who participates in killing people, and then you say, oh, no big deal, here you go, here's the regional director position, here's $15,000 added on to your salary. Don't worry about the person you just killed and his family. And here you go. Here's another $10,000 raise. Go down to Washington State Prison and do the same thing you've been doing at Telfair State Prison, pepper spraying people, uh, uh, spraying into their cells, and then covering up the bottom of the cell so they can't breathe. Don't worry about all that. Here you go. We're just going to throw you down here and continue on about our business as if things have been, just fantastic. And and I gotta say, I always have to throw this in because it was said. Governor Kemp said this is better than it has ever been. The Department of Corrections is as best as it is right now, is as best as it's ever been.
Well, what we're looking at is a problem that has everything to do with gross understaffing, but that too happened on his watch.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
just recently, bring us up to date as well. Politically, there's been an appointment as of July 1st, I believe. The House Appropriations Committee has been tasked with um, a 5-month fact-finding mission. It's a committee who's been assigned to do it. What are they going to do in 5 months? They haven't scheduled a hearing yet.
Oh,
They haven't
oh,
asked for any comments yet.
wait. Is this the same committee that's going to be doing the $2 million study on what they can do better? No,
Uh,
no.
that's a company he's hired out of Chicago that's going to be doing that.
Okay, yeah, and that's gonna give them all of their pointers on what they need to do to make this prison system better. It's funny, and I don't know if anybody else has thought this, but it's mighty funny that they didn't give a damn about any type of study or any type of panel until somebody was killed with a gun 4 weeks ago.
Folks, if you haven't listened to that 911 call, and it's on the Human Civil Rights Coalition of Georgia website. If you haven't listened to that, oh my gosh.
I
It's
mean,
18 minutes of absolute bedlam.
and just to touch on that, and we're doing fantastic on time, so we can touch on that just a little bit. And before they spend money on a freaking training or a freaking study, a $2 million training, they need to take that money and to train their staff properly, because that 911 call was an absolute mess. It was complete garbage. It was mess. I mean, you have officers running around, and I will say this. I will say this about that 911 call. I do not fault the girl that called 911. She
Oh,
was doing the best that she could do. She's in main control.
yeah,
Obviously, she's at main control, and she has no clue whatsoever what's going on. You know, 2 or 3 thousand feet away from her. So she's conveying the information and she gets it. But I mean, you can just listen to the radio traffic. These people, there was nobody, keeping a visual on anyone. There was nothing going on. So before they spend that $2 million in studying what they know is the issue, and what they know, the solutions that can fix this stuff, they need to properly train the little staff that they do have. Because I'm going to tell you, and I hate to say this, and you can say whatever you want to say. I really don't care, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's not surprising that this hasn't happened before now. The entire Smith State Prison has, that whole situation, what happened at Smith. I mean, it's just, this can happen every day if someone wanted it to happen every day.
yeah, yeah. What you hear in the background is someone going, "I don't know what to do." They actually have said it. I don't know what to do. All right, you're in a situation. You should have been training for this one all the time. It's the worst possible thing that could happen. So an offender has a gun, the gun is loaded, and he has killed someone and killed himself. But, as Brian said, how did he get from his cell to the chow hall where she was working? Or that I'm going to make an assumption here that the gates were left open, that no one stopped him and said, "Why are you carrying that gun?" you know, How did he get there and no one says a word?
Yeah. So, as we start to wrap up,
Yeah.
you know, Clifford Bagley or Clifford Lawrence Bagley Jr. death at Telfair State Prison in May of 2023 was a travesty. I mean, it was 100% uncalled for. This family deserves justice. This family deserves answers. And I'm going to say it's a complete slap in the face to Clifford Bagley's mother to promote individuals that participated in her son's death. And then the GDC just comes right out behind it and slaps him in the face again and says, "Oh, his death was was an accident." There's no accident to spray somebody's cell 3 or 4 times a day. There's no accident to go and pick on someone who, from, as I said at the beginning, his cellmates is adamant that he never told them that Clifford was acting strange. Outspoken just came on and told you that that was a lie. He was singled out by Jermaine White, by Veronica Stewart, and by other people. He was tortured, he was beat, he was tased, and then he was tortured in the cell, being maced and pepper sprayed every single day, 3 or 4 times a day, until he couldn't take anymore and he died in his cell. And then the GDC, how dare them, the shady bunch, the corrupt to the core bunch, slaps them in the face even more and says, "Oh, his death was an accident."
And that is precisely what happened. We have the report. We have the mortality report that says it.
Yeah, accident. It's no accident. And I tell you now, I hope his family pursues this to the fullest extent of the law, that they don't stop fighting. We're going to continue here at the Human and Civil Rights Coalition of Georgia to put the pressure on the Georgia Department of Correction, Tyrone Oliver, to immediately, because I'm going to tell you now, it's real on what's going on at Telfair State, I'm sorry, at Washington State Prison. And Susan alluded to it. She took what she learned from Jermaine White at Telfair, she took it to Washington and is inflicting torture and harm on the people at Washington State Prison. I mean, just last week she went into the dining hall and stood on an individual's back and hit him in the face with a can, not sprayed him, hit him in the face with a can of mace after he was already on the ground, handcuffed. She went in there and stood on his back after she hit him in the face with a can of mace. And these are the people that are being promoted, and then they want to know why they can't run these facilities the correct way. It's because the people that you are putting in these places, like Jacob Beasley at Smith and now Veronica Stewart at Washington, are self-proclaimed gangsters,
They're certainly
thugs,
they're certainly
thugs.
showing they are certainly showing the people that work for them how it's done.
Yeah, I mean, just all out gangster. I mean, they going in there acting tougher than some of the people that's in there. They got rap sheets worse than some of the people's. There's a lot of people that's not in there for murder, that they've participated and committed a murder when they killed Clifford Bagley at Telfair last year. And then, as I said, and it pisses me off so bad that you promote the guy that is not innocent by any stretch of the imagination, but that you promote the guy, and after he participated in Clifford's murder, you promote him to run and to oversee 15 prisons.
And then his understudies get moved up to prisons of their own.
Yeah. I mean, and now just look at the shit shows. And excuse my language, it ain't gonna be uh, what is it, G tonight? Might be. We don't get off here. It might be X, rated X. I don't know, but you know, I can't fathom, Susan, what the family is going through. Clifford Bagley, and um, you know, it's a warning. You know, save this date, save this audio, save this live, because I can almost guarantee you that if Veronica Stewart is allowed to stay in her position at Washington State Prison and continue what she's been taught by Jermaine White, then you're going to have another Clifford Bagley.
You
You're
know,
going to have another one.
I've been following and you know, following the information that flows out of the prisons. I've been following it now. I guess I'm into my 7th year, and what happened to Clifford Bagley has stuck with me every day since then. It was such a terrible thing. We really had not had anything like that, and what gave it what made it believable was that riot, well, I mean, disturbance that happened on the Monday or Tuesday following it, because that thing went through, it went through from dorm to dorm at Telfair, and as the word spread what had happened to him, this was an uprising, and it really did happen. They kept GDC kept that as quiet as possible, but that really did happen. And then to follow this was in May, to follow that with Juan Ramirez's death in July, and it, there is so little there's so little care for human life that we're seeing. Whether you hear this or read this, the fact is, when these state departments of corrections are charged with the care of, these are people in their care. These aren't people to be treated and be treated in this way. They aren't to be tortured. They aren't to be beaten. They aren't to be tased. Those are the use of tasing, for example, and the spraying of pepper spray. Those are measures that should be used way after nothing else has worked. But in this case, it was standard operating procedure, and it was well known.
Yeah.
And these two in particular, Beasley and Stewart, have carried on what they learned. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like a kingpin. They learned it all from their kingpin, and now they're at these facilities wreaking havoc on the people that's in their care. And I'm telling you now, Veronica Stewart is going to get herself in a lot of trouble, or she's going to kill another person, all because her power trip. I mean, you read our page, you know what's been going on our page. She is continuing the same behavior.
I ask you, who is going to stop her? Who is going to stop her? I don't see Brian Porter Kemp stopping her. Who's going to stop her? Who's going to put a stop to this inhumane treatment of the people who are incarcerated in the Georgia Department of Corrections? Who's going to step up?
And Susan, she's been doing this for so long, as she was as a unit manager, and then as a deputy warden. She's been doing it for all of this long, for years. And you know why she's been doing it for all this long, for years? It's because she knows that she can get away with it. She knows that she can get away with it, of violating people's rights, treating people worse than people treat animals. And she
Yeah.
does it all because she knows that she can get away with it, and she knows that there's no consequences whatsoever for her actions. And she's not even been the warden at Washington State Prison for a good month, and she's already wreaking havoc, just like she was doing at Telfair State Prison when she would go by Clifford Bagley's door and spray into his cell 3 or 4 times a day. She's doing the same damn things that she did at Telfair. She's doing it now at Washington State Prison. Well, I got news for you, and I know you're probably watching, or somebody's going to tell her about it. We're going to be on your ass like white on rice with everything that you do at Washington State Prison until you're out of Washington State Prison, because we're tired of we will do everything that we can to prevent another Clifford Lawrence Bagley Jr. from dying. And we're gonna be on you. I don't care if every post on the page is dedicated to you. Enough is enough, and we're gonna do everything in our power to prevent you from causing another death as you did to this young man, 31 years old.
I don't even know what's left to say. That it's just, this is heartbreaking. It has to stop. It has to be stopped. It isn't going to stop by itself.
You know, we need every single one of you to get involved, to lend your voices, to call, to continue to share. We need everyone to share this video tonight, this live that we've done. We can't do it without you. Enough is enough. I see that in the comments. And Killer Kemp and those people down at the Capitol, they still haven't got the message yet that enough is enough. And we need each and every one of you to stand with us, to stand with the Bagley family. And we're going to demand that this has to stop. It has to stop. Every day we're posting about deaths. We're posting about violence. We're posting about everything. And enough is enough. I mean, and we have got to come together. We got to be the voices for those men and women that's incarcerated. And we have got to stand up. And, we cannot accept no for an answer. And we got to fight. We got to get out there on the front lines. We got to get back to that governor's mansion. And we cannot accept the status quo. And the status quo for too long has been, well, they'll be all right, or, oh, it'll pass over, or, oh, they're lying, or whatever the case is. We cannot accept that any longer. And we got to come together. We got to come together. Everybody that's on this live, please share this. Let's get this story out there. Before I hand it over to Susan, please continue to pray for the Bagley family. Clifford, I seen Clifford's mom on tonight, his dad's on, his sisters, his cousins. His family's on here, and they need our support. I know it's been a year ago, but now is the time. We've brought it out there. We put it out there. We've put straight facts out there. I love for the GDC to issue a statement and say that we were lying, that none of what we told you for the last hour is true. But they're not going to do that because they know it's true. And we need each and every one of you to stand with us. Let's fight for these men and women behind these fences, behind the walls, and to continue to be transparent. And they need our help like never before. So I'm gonna let Susan close us out. And as I said, I appreciate each and every single one of you for coming on with us for this hour. And we appreciate you. Go ahead, Susan.
Thank you. GDC incarcerates at this time about 47,000 men and women. some of those are not in state prison, they're in county prisons, and there's some that are in transitional centers. But altogether, the number's 47,000 or thereabouts, a little bit over maybe. They have no way. I mean, by the nature of being incarcerated, they don't have the ability to resist their captors, so to speak. I'm not saying that everything that goes on in there. These aren't choir boys and angels necessarily who are incarcerated, but very few of them deserve anything other than to be treated in accordance with the law in terms of human and civil rights. So let them do their time, but this shouldn't be raised to the level of torture, of deaths, of what's going on, of cover-ups. Those things are all going on. And if you don't believe Brian and me, then just pay attention here. You'll come to see it as we do. But I think I've got tremendous faith that the people who are actually listening and or engaged in this podcast know exactly what's going on. And if we don't stand up, who will? If not us, who? And by us, you don't have to report anything with your name. You don't need to use your personal email address, but you can't not say something. You simply can't. We can't say nothing. Or what happened to Clifford Bagley can happen just as easily to your loved one. So let's stand together and stand for something. So thank you all for joining us tonight, and I hope you'll give this prayerful consideration. That asking yourself, what can I do? We all need to do something.
Amen. All right, Susan, I appreciate you for this hour, and until the next one.
Yes, sir.
We'll see everybody soon.
Okay, thank you all.
Also, well, before we go, thank Unspoken. Thanks Unspoken for taking the courage to come on tonight with us, and to give everybody the information that everybody needs to know. He's already gone. Maybe one of the officers finally came in to do something. Anyway, definitely thank Unspoken for coming on tonight and giving us the truth. So, all right, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
You.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.